Good morning, guys. It's Mrs. Hodnett. Today I thought we'd work on the SOL 8.2 worksheet, and that worksheet has to do with the real number system. So I thought we should review real quick before we jumped in on the worksheet. So if you remember, this was way back towards the beginning of school. We talked about the real number system, and we talked about if numbers were real, they were either rational, which means they're your whole numbers, your nice, neat fractions, nice, neat decimals, repeating decimals, numbers that are perfect squares. And if they're not rational, then they were irrational. And pretty much irrational is like pi, numbers that are not perfect squares, like square root of 37, those decimals that just go on and on forever, they don't stop, they don't repeat. And then if it was rational, it could be an integer. Remember, integers are whole numbers and their opposites. There are no decimals in integers. Then it could be a whole number. Your whole numbers start with 0 and count up. Again, there are no decimals. Or they could be natural or your counting numbers. Those are your whole numbers except for 0, because when we start counting with the number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So let's look at what you had on your worksheet. And so the very first question says, Anya is thinking of a real number. Is she thinking of a rational number? Well, since we don't know what number specifically Anya is thinking about, we really can't answer this question because it could be it could be rational, it could be irrational. So the best answer for this one is C, can't be determined. So let's mark letter C. Okay, number 2. Sirio is thinking of an irrational number. Is he thinking of a real number? Well, let's look at our chart. An irrational number. If it's irrational, we know it also has to be real. So the answer for number 2 would be yes. If it's irrational, it has to be real. All right, in the next section, we have to select all the correct answers. So there could be more than one answer. All correct. Number 3, which names apply to the number negative 13.999? Well, if we think about our chart up here, the first thing is negative 13.999 a real number? Well, it is a real number. So let's find real on here. So here is real. Okay. Now let's decide, is it rational or irrational? Well, negative 13.999. That 9 seems to be repeating, which makes me think it's a repeating decimal. Therefore, it's going to be rational. So let's look at our list, and rational is right here with letter C. Okay, under rational is an integer, whole numbers and their opposites, no decimals. Well, that clearly has a decimal, so it's not an integer. If it's not an integer, it can't be a whole number and it can't be a natural number. So the answer for number 3 is real and rational. All right, number 4, which names apply to the number negative square root of 49 divided by 7? Well, let's figure out what that is. I'm going to go over here to my Desmos calculator. Let me get it up. And let's type in the square root of 49. And we can see that the answer is 7. So if I write that down on my paper, I have negative 7 divided by 7. And we can go back to our Desmos if we need to. We can go to the next line and we can actually just type that in. Negative 7 divided by 7. And we can see that we get the answer is negative 1. So all of that works down to negative 1. Sorry about that. Told you, not going to be the best quality. So which names apply to the number negative 1? Well, let's look at our list. Is negative 1 a real number? Yes. Is it rational? Yes. Is it an integer? Yes. Is it a whole number? No. If it's not a whole number, it can't be a natural number. So let's go back to our list. We said it is real. We said it is rational. And we said it is an integer. Okay. Number 5. Which names apply to the number negative square root of 50 divided by 7? So let's figure out what that is. So I'm going to come back to my calculator. I'm going to clear it all out. I'm going to do the square root of 50. And, okay, automatically I get a big ugly decimal when I do that. So I know that this is not a perfect square. And anything that is not a perfect square is going to be irrational. Now, we can take this further if you want, and we can divide it. We can divide it by, scroll down, we'll take our answer, and we'll divide that by the 7 that was on the bottom. And we'll get negative, because we got to put that negative back in front of it. Negative 1.01015. It's going to keep on going, okay? So because square root of 50 is not a perfect square, we automatically know it's irrational. But even if it's irrational, it is still real. So for number 5, we should have real and irrational. All right, number 6, 2 more to go. So for number 6, it says, which names apply to the number, the square root of 81? So let's go back to our calculator and let's clear this out, clear it all, and we're going to do the square root of 81, and we get 3. So all of that is simply equal to 3. Well, we know that 3 is definitely a real number. So let's circle in E. We know that that 3 is rational. So we're going to put it here because it's a whole number. We can look at our chart. It is an integer. So we're going to circle A for integer. We can tell that it is a whole number. And it is also a natural number because we can count to 3. So it's everything except letter D. All right, last one. Which names apply to the number, the square root of pi squared? Well, we learned that when you square a number and take the square root, those two things cancel each other out. So we're simply left with pi. And from our chart, we know that pi is irrational and real. So let's circle those in. It is real and it is irrational. All right, so that's our review of SOL 8.2. Hope you guys have a good day. Bye.